Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. Great to have you with us on this Monday. Maiden voyage for me this year, Howard. I will be here each and every day, maybe with a couple exceptions between now and the Final Four.
I'm sure you'll find a way to get a day here and there.
You'll
be out on assignment.
I am devoted to on assignment is really the greatest catch-all in all of broadcasting. Howard Griffith is on assignment.
Yes.
Howard Griffith was on assignment for quite some time.
14 days, 16 days, 14 schools, somewhere in there.
4,100 plus miles. How you feeling?
Well, I feel better since I wasn't biking.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. But no, it's always fun to get out and be amongst the people and also be amongst the teams, right? Get an opportunity to see some coaches in a relaxed environment, get a chance to talk with them and find out some of the things that they believe are important for their teams to have success.
It is incredible how much we learn on this tour. And I think it was reinforced for me this year because I actually missed 5 stops. I missed 1 in 16 years. I missed
and then you
5
listen,
this year.
So 1 was good, right?
Yeah.
2 was good. You had to drop the little one off.
That was drop a kid off at college. So that was 2. So we knew about those 2. And then 3 were expansion, which seems like a valid excuse.
But I think when you need to take the little one to school, that's important.
Yes. No, I feel good about having done it.
Did you cry?
I didn't want to get into it. But Michigan and Michigan State, I don't know as much about as I'd like to know. All right, our big story is the tour. It wrapped up Saturday in Madison. Along the way, Jerry and Howard saw every team practice, as we've done every year in the history of the network. Oh, there I was. Aside from the COVID year. Big season on tap in the conference. You got 5 ranked teams in the preseason AP poll, 3 of the top 7. Last year, the Big Ten East, the first division ever to put 2 teams in the college football playoff. I like that they put in a few pictures of me. Just shot us
to make you feel better.
At least for a little while. I was talking about the Big Ten East.
Yeah.
Let's dive into Michigan. They've made the playoff 2 years in a row. Now, this was one of the stops that I did miss. Yeah. I'm very disappointed that I missed it. I need you to fill me in on Michigan and give me a sense of where this stands. Because on paper, to me, this is the best team.
I would say this, the paper isn't lying.
Okay.
When you show up in Ann Arbor and then have an opportunity to watch this team go through their paces, it's very clear that in my mind, they're the best team in the East. And when you think about the way this team is built, the offensive line, the defensive line, you look at the backfield on the offensive side, arguably the best backfield in all of college athletics when you include the quarterback at that position. This is a team that could arguably be better on the offensive line. Now, when I asked that question, some of the coaches gave me a little smirk. You know the smirk when it's like,
we know something,
but we don't want to tell you just yet. It's going to be really fun. You talk about a group that is well coached. They do a tremendous job at every one of those positions out there, and it's a reason that they've won the Big Ten the last couple of years and competed in the college football playoff, because this team is really put together. They're hardworking. They're going to do everything that they need to do, and they don't make mistakes. And you see JJ making another stride, and that's what's interesting about it, because he's playing so well. You just know where the upside is. He still has, I won't say a long way to go, but there is still so much more that he can bring to a team. The sky's the limit for him, and has always been. And I think he'll be able to be ready to take that next step this year.
So I tried to do some scouting, and a great conversation with Jay Harbaugh. Spent about an hour on the phone with him. He's really, really high on this team as well. And I was asking him about, hey, are there areas where you don't feel like you're deep enough? And he said, no. They really feel like across the board, this is a complete team. To me, if I were to look at it, and what I would have liked to have seen where I camp is, do you believe that there is a certifiable, consistent, deep threat at wide receiver? Like, is Cornelius Johnson that guy? Is Roman Wilson that guy? Cornelius Johnson showed us maybe he could be that guy in the Ohio State game, right?
And they've got players there, right? And I think what ends up helping this process is the way they're able to run the football, that there are going to be some opportunities when the top comes off. And they've had some of those opportunities. They just missed on them. That's one part of, if you want to critique JJ's game, it's been the deep threat connecting on that particular play. So it's there. I don't think it's really a question of whether the receivers are there to be able to make that happen. They are. It's about JJ being able to connect. And again, another year under his belt, an opportunity to study film, to work on his footwork, continue to get better as a quarterback. He should be able to hit some of those this year.
So the other concern I would say would be, does the defense hold up in the playoff? Right? The defense has been really good in the regular season the last couple of years, and then they've gotten to the playoff, and they've gotten kind of dissected. Now, by one really good team, right, in Georgia, and by national champ 2 years ago, but TCU really shredded them at times last year. So, and they had some self-inflicted wounds, obviously, as well. They handed TCU some points, but still, to me, that's a concern.
And I would say this, and my contention particularly the last couple of years, is that defense, it's important, but when you talk about that 14 playoff, it's the reason that they're there. These offenses are high-powered. They can make plays. They take advantage of certain situations. And you talk about you can't afford to give teams points. You can't afford to allow them to stay on the field. You've got to be able to find ways to get off. So what I'm saying, offense is so important when it comes to the playoffs that even the good defenses are going to be exposed at certain times because it's a reason that they're one of the 4 best teams. So I don't get as concerned about that. The defense needs to get them there. Right. That's what they need to do. And then, if you're in the game, you've got an opportunity. But I don't get as concerned about defense when you talk about having some letdowns in championship games.
And to me, truthfully, that's a bigger issue with the next team that we're going to discuss in Ohio State, because at the end of the season last year, Michigan ran right through them, and then they had all kinds of trouble, again, stopping a national champ in Georgia, but you give up more than 530 yards in both one of those games. So let's start our visit to Columbus, which I was fortunate enough to be on as well. Let's start with that defense. And I guess my question for you, I'm a little interested in talent-wise, particularly up front. It feels like they haven't had an edge rusher at the caliber of some of the incredible guys that they had for years there.
Which is a problem.
Yeah, but it's a very high bar.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
But again, like schematically, are they in the right defense, you believe, Ohio State, for those big games?
Yeah, I do believe they're in the right defense, but you can't give up those big plays.
Right.
And I think that's the challenge that you have. It's interesting you talk about the edge rushers. And listen, Ohio State's been spoiled. We've been spoiled. When you talk about watching the Bosa brothers and then you watch a guy like Chase Young, those were 3 generational talent players you're talking about there. And they just have not been able to find the person that can play at that level. That's hard to do. Okay, that's hard to
join
do.
the club.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot of teams that can't find a Bosa brother right now.
Everybody's looking for him, but it's. Listen, I think they have to secure the defense, and I think they'll be better, particularly on the back end where they need to make plays. I joke all the time about Laurinaitis now being on the coaching staff. I think when he was at Notre Dame, he made that room better. At Ohio State, he's going to make that room better as well. He has a great feel for the game. He understands the game. He sees the game the way those young people that he is coaching sees the game. So that helps them. But they'll be better at that position. But you're right. If they can manufacture some things to be able to get to the quarterback, they'll need to do it. But they can't give up the big plays. Because the reality is this. They have the talent that they have on that team, particularly on the offensive side. It's hard to keep up with them. So they're going to be able to score points. They just can't in those critical games, right? And you add Penn State to that mix now, and you talk about Michigan now, and whatever happens if they can get to the playoffs. You can't give up big plays against those guys. You can't do it, and that's where they have to solidify some things, making sure that they're run sound, the linebackers are run sound on their gap fits so that they don't leave any voided areas. So the next thing you know, you've got an elite tailback that's now one-on-one with someone in the secondary. You don't want that matchup. I don't care who you are. But those are things that they just have to continue to get there. They have to get there.
It's crazy how good the wide receivers are. It is so much fun to watch them. The question, I guess, is how good are the quarterbacks, right? And Cal McCord's played a little bit, and when he's played, he's been incredibly accurate and really good. He hasn't played against elite competition, but he's certainly shown he's capable. Devin Brown, again, was limited a little bit
Yeah.
in the spring, but man, he can really move and has a nice arm as well. The inexperience, though, Howard, I guess is something you wonder about. You have elite tailbacks and you have an incredible wide receiver crew. Are those two guys, one of those two guys, is one of them good enough?
Yes, one of them is good enough. And I would say this. When Justin Fields took over, he struggled early. Right?
Okay.
Stroud struggled early, so much so that the fan base wanted him on the bench.
Right?
So I think it is a challenge to be able to play the quarterback position at Ohio State. Then they've got to learn how to be the quarterback at Ohio State. It's a lot of pressure that's on that position. But we know that they're well coached. They're not going to turn the football over. So they're going to be able to grow and build confidence as the season goes on, I think, is what's going to be important. That's what we've seen take place under Ryan Day's tutelage since he's come there as the offensive coordinator. The quarterbacks have gotten better each and every week that he has an opportunity to work with them. So I'm not so concerned about that. I would be more concerned about what happens defensively, more so than the quarterback position. And even if I had to go away from the quarterback position, what's happening up front?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the game has to be won, is up front. And they've not dominated that area. And when you look at the athletes that they have and they recruit, or you just watching them move through their drills, there's no reason. You're saying, well, what is it? And you know they're coached well. You know that. So I don't know whether it was the way the game was being called initially for the first couple of years, because people were talking about, well, they can't control it. They're not stout enough at the point of attack. And I get that, and I see that, and they see it as well. So they're trying to do everything to correct that. They put up incredible numbers in the offseason workout programs. They do all the things they need to, but they have to be able to do it not just every Saturday, right? They've got to be able to do it in the biggest games, and that's where the problems, I think, really show themselves when they're playing against a stout defense that has an unbelievable, whether they're edge rushers or big guys inside that can create some problems for your offensive line.
I'm with you on Ohio State's offensive line, particularly when you compare it to the next team that we're going to talk about. And I think we have to discuss Penn State among the elite teams, among the teams with a chance to win this division, to play in the college football playoff. They were really good when we saw them, Howard. And it starts, maybe it doesn't start, but it includes a very good offensive line.
An offensive line that has taken time to get to this point.
Yes.
Right? It's been a recruiting process, and we watched it really for the last 10 years, probably longer than that, when you start talking about how good this line is compared to previous years. So it seems like they are in a great position. They've got great backs that don't just make guys miss and make the offensive line look good, but the offensive line is getting these guys to the second level. And that's when they're able to go to work, and they're one-on-one, whether it's a linebacker in the hole, whether it's a safety or a corner, they're going to make that guy miss. So we've seen that happen. And the funniest thing, we really got to get to the bottom of Gatorade and Fat Boy. That's their nickname of the backfield over there. I told them I didn't want to hear anything else about Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah.
So they came up with Gatorade and Fat Boy. And the follow-up, this is where I screwed the thing up. The follow-up was, who's the fat boy? Now who's Gatorade? Who's the fat boy? But I'm sure we'll figure that one out. We'll get to that. But you're right. This is a team that is poised. All they need to do is be able to win those games now, because now we see what they like talent-wise. We see it. You look on the defensive line, they're loaded. This defense is loaded. Once again, Manny Diaz has done an unbelievable job of getting them. You're talking about the first year. I mean, the second year is when you see the biggest growth.
Right.
They may have more players now than they did in the previous year.
They blew me away. I mean, I thought they were really good. Now, Drew Aller's inexperienced, and so you do wonder a little bit about that. But, I mean, probably 3 legitimate edge rushers. I mean, they just caused so much havoc on defense, and he inherited a good defense, but he took it to a level of disruption that it had not been at prior to that. So, man, they're right there, Howard. Like, they are right there. There is no reason that Penn State cannot be the team that wins the Big Ten East. Will they?
They got to play the game.
I don't know. Yeah.
Right. They've got to play the game.
Yes.
But this is a really good team that I think the country is going to be fixated on.
And we're going to say it a lot just because the numbers are the numbers. They're 4-14 against Ohio State and Michigan in the time that James Franklin's been there. There is no shame in that.
No.
Right? A lot of
It's
teams
tough.
have lost a lot of games to Ohio State and Michigan. But for them to take that next step that I think everyone in that program believes they can take, they got to win at least one of them. They have to win one of those games this year. Our big stat is brought to you by Gatorade. Volleyball season starts this week. If history is to be our guide, Wisconsin figures to be in the picture. Badgers have won the last 4 conference crown. It's tied for the second longest streak in conference history. And the prognosticators like their chances this year. They're picked to win the league again, ranked number 2 in the nation. Their head coach, as promised, Kelly Sheffield, is today's big interview. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. I realize it was just an exhibition this weekend against UIC, but still you guys swept through them. What did you take from watching your team against another opponent?
Well, a lot of things that we already knew. I mean, we've got size, we're physical, our kids love to compete. But that first time that you play in front of crowds and against an opponent, there's you've got those nerves that you're trying to work through, and so they had fun, but there's a lot of work that's in front of us.
You had Yulia Orzel start at libero. Help people understand the significance of that move and how you thought that worked.
Yeah, I mean, she's talented. There's a lot of things she can do on the court, and when you've got Timmy Thomas and Sarah Franklin on the outside, Yulia Orzel's been a starting outside hitter for us for the past 2 years, and we want to try to find her a way on the court somehow. And so, taking a look at her in the libero position, she played for set 1, and then Gulce Guchtekin played, who's last year's libero, played set 2 and 3, and then we brought our young kid, freshman Sage Damro, in for the 4th set. So that's one of the great things about the exhibitions is you can move some people around and take different looks. But I thought Yulia looked really comfortable in that role.
And you had a similar opportunity to get different looks at your team this offseason. You guys took a tour of Europe, which looked amazing to me. I mean, Turkey, Slovenia, Italy, Switzerland. I'm sure on the court it was really valuable, but off the court, which of those places made the biggest impact on you?
Well, it's me personally, maybe it was Istanbul, just because of how different that place is. I mean, it's I loved all of those places. It's I don't know. Here I am talking about Istanbul, but you go to Zurich, Switzerland, and that's a pretty sweet place as well. The trip was fantastic. The group of people that we took were great. The level of competition was really high. It was a great 2 weeks.
Give people a sense for the level of volleyball, the teams that you played against there, and how they compare to teams in the Big Ten and the elite teams in the U.S.
Yeah, it's probably very similar. The teams that we played were, I would say, the top half of the Big Ten is probably where I'd fit those guys. We played 2 teams in Turkey that were probably right up there, and then we played a team in Italy. Quite a few of those players were still on the court from when we played them 4 years earlier, and a couple of their players were just at Volleyball Nations League the previous week. So the level that we were playing against in Italy was really high. But that's one of the things that you've got to adjust to. You're walking around, you're touring, you're seeing different places, and then later on in the day you're trying to get out in the court and compete, and maybe your body and your legs aren't feeling like they usually do. Maybe you're a little bit tired, but you got to find a way to compete, and I thought our players did that.
Well, one of the players that's back competing for you is Sarah Franklin. I know she had an off-season health scare. Where is she in her return? I mean, I know she's back out on the court, but do you feel like she's at 100%? And give us an idea of what she's been through.
It's unbelievable. I mean, she goes into surgery, and the first thing her surgeon said is there's a really good chance that your career is done, and and that's a hard thing to take, obviously mentally and emotionally and things. And she got kind of a best scenario that played itself out there in the hospital and came back and the better part of 2 or just under 3 months, she's on blood thinners, but she's doing everything she can to get back. And she looks great right now. I mean, she looks as she did everything she could to put herself in a position to be playing well. Anybody that was in the field house on Saturday and just watched the physicality and how she carried herself would wonder did she even have any issues? But they were really, really serious and really, really scary, and just really proud of the position that she's put herself in. And man, I don't think I've ever seen a kid enjoy being out on the court more than she is every single day.
That is tremendous. I know you got 2 really good players in the portal. You had already mentioned Temi Thomas-Ailara, who came over from Northwestern, Carter Booth from Minnesota. How have you seen each one of them fit into your lineup?
Yeah, they fit in great. We were fortunate we got Carter in the spring, and so she was able to work with us. She fits in. I mean, just the strength of her personality and just the how much she just hangs on about every word to try to learn. She is mentally tough, competitor, no fear whatsoever. Timmy got in and got a couple weeks of practice right before we went to Europe trip. She was there for part of our Europe trip and then came back and was part of graduation ceremonies there at Northwestern. But she also wants to learn. She's going into her 5th year, and so it's a really short window that we've got with her. But people love playing with her, and she's a joy to coach every day.
Coach, it's amazing. I mean, we were showing the success that you've had. Marquette's been a good program, too, in the state. So, I mean, it feels like volleyball in Wisconsin is just in an amazing place. How have you seen the success of your program in particular impact youth volleyball in Wisconsin?
The club scene has always, I think, had a presence here in pockets. I think that goes back, 20, 30 years. There's been some pockets that have been really good. There's been some high school teams that have been really good. But you're seeing the growth just really expanding. The level of coaching has gotten a lot deeper. There's been a lot more clubs than maybe 1 or 2. And the high school programs are really going to the different level, and you're seeing all these, fan supports that's filling these arenas. We're playing Marquette, and we're knocking on the door of being able to get 17,000 people to watch that match in Fiserv Arena. But it's a big deal. It's a sport that so many young girls and the boys are growing up, and it's what they want to do at a very young age. It's kind of the cool sport here in this state, and that's a real tribute to the high school and club training that is going on.
We'll talk a lot more about this during the course of the year. I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point, but just interested, give people an idea of the impact of expansion on Big Ten volleyball. I mean, just looking at the top 10, Oregon is in there. USC is a ranked team. Yeah. You've got Washington receiving votes. I mean, this is already a loaded league. What's it going to look like a year from now?
All right, so David, I don't think anybody would disagree that the Big Ten has been the most dominant conference in volleyball for a little while now, and there's only been 12 or 13 teams that have ever won a national championship. You just brought in Washington, USC, and UCLA, and all 3 of those schools have won national championships. Those are 3 of the 12 that have won it. And Oregon, who's played in the national championship match as well. And so it just got significantly tougher in the sport of volleyball by adding those 4 teams.
Well, I know we are excited about it. We've got our first volleyball matches on our air coming up this weekend. It is the Big Ten, Big 12 Challenge. You'll be participating in that in Minneapolis. You've got Baylor and TCU. I know Baylor, a really formidable team that beat you a year ago. Give us a quick scouting report on them before we let you go.
Yeah, thanks for reminding everybody we lost that match.
Well, I'm trying to build it up so that people watch, Coach. They watch the
We've had
match.
we've had amazing matches with Baylor over the year in the NCAA tournament in the regular season. We played them year after year, and the matches have been unreal. The talent level that they bring in is really, really impressive. TCU has really turned their program around. They had a great season last year. We saw them in the NCAA tournament, the second round. They bring in a transfer from Texas that we think is really going to help them. But it's been an awesome way to start the season with both of those teams, and taking those matches up in Minneapolis, where they'll also play the University of Minnesota that weekend as well. It should be a great way to start off the season.
Cannot wait. And again, we're thrilled to be airing it here on the Big Ten Network. Kelly Sheffield,
Yeah.
best of luck this year. Congratulations on all your success in Madison, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again down the road.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dave.
As I mentioned, we've got that challenge on our air this weekend. A huge doubleheader on Friday. The Badgers taking on those 15th ranked Bears we were talking about. Then the reigning conference player of the year, Taylor Landfair, leading the 7th ranked Gophers against TCU. Coverage starts at 5:30 Eastern, powered by Unleaded 88 on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Back on Big Ten today, the Big Ten West has been predictably unpredictable over the last 5 years. Northwestern is the only school to win it more than once. Wisconsin, Iowa, and Purdue each took home a title. Illinois and Minnesota have been in the mix as well. So, Howard, let's run through it, and let's just go through every team quickly. We're going to have a ton of time again to get to this between now and when the games are played, not this weekend, but the next weekend. Let's start with Wisconsin. They were the last stop on our tour. We were both really impressed.
A little recency bias here, I would think. I was really impressed with them. You talk about changing the offense. Thought there would be more changes to the defense. It doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. They'll stick with the 3-4. I think it'll be a base package for them because they have so many linebackers that it really fits what they're doing. Offensively, I think we still just have to watch this team, right? We need to watch the first game just to see what it starts to look like. We know they've been trying to throw the ball vertically, haven't been able to do it, but it'll be interesting to see how they utilize Allen in his role as well.
Yes, against a non-stacked box. I feel like he might be drooling as we speak of the opportunity to do that. So we'll because he's pretty good when the box is stacked. So
poor safeties and corners.
Iowa was the team we saw just before them.
Yeah.
Cade McNamara was hurt.
Yep.
And so that's a huge part of it. Obviously, they hope to have him back. They were saying the end of this week. Mm-hmm. He was walking around when we were at practice. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's anything too serious. Yeah. But again, like that's a huge piece of the puzzle. And it's kind of tough to judge them, right?
It's hard to figure out, who they are.
Yeah.
But we know this, right? They're going to play unbelievable defense,
right?
Because that's just what they do there. So you feel good about what they're doing defensively there. Offensively, you see parts there, but not seeing Cade out there practicing, you really don't know how it all is going to come together. So I think this will be another one of those teams that we'll have to watch as a year, because if Cade is out there, this changes everything. Because you make a strong argument for this tight end group. Iowa is pretty good. When you talk about being able to, have both guys as inline blockers, then all of a sudden you can put them out in wide receiver positions. They can catch some defenses trying to play nickel against them, and then all of a sudden they close the formation, and now they're in a heavy run situation. So how you play them defensively is going to dictate and tell a lot about the type of success someone might be able to have against them.
Kirk Ferentz was raving about Eric All as a blocker and said he wants to be in on everything, and at a certain point you just need to say, hey, let's just
sit him down.
Let's get you to game day, okay?
And that's what they need. That's all they need to really do. And because they're not as deep.
Yeah.
But the offensive line is better.
It is much better.
The offensive line is better, and that's going to be a big part of it.
And Lachey was great the day we were there, too. I catch him passes left and right. Minnesota, I was bummed to have missed them. This was when the expansion was going on. Mm-hmm. And but I know you guys really like them. To me, there are a lot of question marks. I think PJ put it really well at Media Days. They're in some ways incredibly experienced, right? I mean, you got 5th, 6th, and 7th year seniors.
Right.
But then you also have a lot of question marks and a lot of inexperience.
Yeah, and you have that. But one thing that we always walk away from Minnesota with is they're well coached. They go through their scenarios. They understand different situations that they can find themselves in. but they're replacing a lot up front on the offensive line, but they still have talent that's there. They've done a really good job of, I think, stacking their roster and building it the way they need to, because there is what it is they're deeper probably than we've seen them before. It used to be, you had your, just talk about the offensive line. You had that first group, and then you might have had maybe one, maybe two. They probably can go 8, 9 deep right now with that offensive line, and that's impressive when you talk about Minnesota.
You do lose the all-time leading rusher in Mo Ibrahim. You've got Callie Akmanis taking over at quarterback, played a little bit last year, but man, they've been so good on defense. I mean, they've been top 10 in the nation in total defense and scoring defense 2 straight years.
Yeah, they've done a tremendous job.
They really have.
Really taking that next step on the defensive side, which gives them a chance offensively.
While we are on the topic of good defenses, Illinois had the best one in the country last year in terms of scoring defense. At the very top of my inbox right now is an announcement of their starting quarterback, Luke Altmaier, getting the nod. I don't think this necessarily surprises us, although John Paddock got some reps with the number ones while we were there, and I know they feel good about him. He has a lot of experience in the MAC. But quarterback is certainly going to be a question mark. And then I just think overall, you lose a defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, who did an amazing job these last 2 years. So
the least, right?
What did you think of Illinois?
Yeah, I think that they're right where they need to pick up. You talk about a talented defensive line, particularly their interior guys. I mean, arguably, could be one of the best defensive lines in all college athletics. So they're at that point. They have to replace some stuff on the back end, but I think they'll be able to do it. Aaron Henry, first year calling plays for that defense, but I think he's learned a lot and spending time around him. He has a really good feel for the game. And I think what's interesting too, right? You say, well, they got Aaron Henry first time play. I think people forget about, that Brett is a defensive guy.
Yes.
So if he needs to get involved, he can. But what he does a really good job of is hiring coaches, and then once he hires them, he allows those guys to coach. You rarely see him get into a drill where he comes in and takes over. He'll do it, but you rarely see that happen. And now, he has an unbelievable special team coach, and that's kind of where he likes to spend a lot of his time coaching, but he didn't have to do as much because he believes in a special team guy.
It's a really good program, and I think you see that when you're there, and Brett's incredible about we essentially spent the entire day there when we were there, starting with the team meetings, and so you really get a sense for it. I'm not saying it's exclusive or unique to Illinois, right? I mean, but man, you can see how much everyone's on the same page when you're there, and to have done that in as short an amount of time as he has done it is really something.
And I think where it's important from our perspective, when we get a chance to watch practice and be around these coaches, that's significant. But then all of a sudden, you magnify that when you have an opportunity to sit in a classroom environment, in a team meeting environment, because now you're hearing what the players are hearing. And then you see that executed on the field. You say, oh, yeah, of course, that's the way it's supposed to work. So I think he does an unbelievable job, and his coaches are doing a great job, and this will be a big year for him. He's turned it around really quickly.
Let's run through a few more. All of them have new coaches. Matt Rule at Nebraska, your takeaway there.
I like Matt Rule. I really like when you think about building a program, creating the type of culture that he needs to go out and be able to win games. He's going to instill discipline, which I think the program, quite honestly, lacked that. So they're going to be a well-coached team. They just have to be able to make the plays, and we get the chance to see what this offense ultimately is going to look like. I'm excited about it, for one, because he's got a fullback. so that's one reason to be excited, or at least from my perspective.
Yeah, it's a way to sell Howard right away. Right, they're huddling, they got fullbacks. Yeah,
okay, I'm in.
On board, yes, count me in.
But I like what they've done. I mean, listen, they've had to go into the portal to try to overturn that roster and to strengthen it, and we're gonna have to find out. But I think they'll be fine in due time.
Purdue went into the portal as well, and they got a quarterback who wowed us in Hudson Card.
Yeah, he is without a doubt a game changer. I mean, he was. Maybe we saw him the day he was hot. I don't know. I got a feeling
he was fabulous the day we saw him.
Yeah, and then you see that, and you say, "Well, wait a minute, he can run too."
Yeah.
Oh, we got problems facing this team, and I think it's the perfect situation for them, right? People think, okay, you're bringing in a defensive-minded head coach. Well, it's gonna change offensively. I don't think so. I think Purdue fans are gonna be really happy with what they see on the offensive side. And defensively, they're going to continue to grow, continue to recruit to that position. I like their defensive line. Went to the portal to fortify that position. And listen, Ryan Walters knows what he's doing on the defensive side of the football. So he commands that type of respect when he walks into your program. So I know those defensive guys are excited to play for him.
Finally, Northwestern, I mean, it has been just a tumultuous offseason. On the field, what did you see when you were there?
This is a program we've been watching closely for a lot of years. And one of the things that you always saw was a lot of energy. I think one of the challenges right now is everything that's going on outside of the program is really kind of draining the program. And it showed the day we were there. I mean, these people are human. The coaches, everyone is affected by what's going on outside of the lines around this program. So it's going to be critical for them to get off to a fast start, because I would not like to see this team in a situation where, things don't work out early, they get blown out, because there are just so many negative factors on the outside facing this team that you're going to have to do a great job of keeping this club together. And they've done it to this point, but gosh, it's a tough situation for anybody, for coaches, players, support staff. Everybody is going through it at Northwestern right now, and the players are going to be part of it, and they're asked to go out and play a game, which is going to be difficult.
Opener against Rutgers, so a big game really for both of those teams.
Yeah.
And cannot wait for next week. How about 4 straight days of Big Ten football?
Okay.
Starts Thursday night. We got a conference clash in the Twin Cities. We have 3 games on our air opening day. Defending West champion Boilers, Maryland and Towson, the Illini in prime time. Northwestern and Rutgers will wrap things up on Sunday. Michigan State has its traditional Friday night opener, Howard. So let's go into Michigan State here next. It was disappointing last year. How equipped are they to bounce back based on what you saw at camp?
Well, I know this is going to be a tough team. Mel Tucker wants a tough physical team, wants to be able to control the line of scrimmage. That's how he wants to play the game. But like many teams, they've got a quarterback that they need to find the right guy to be able to lead this team. They've got a close competition. The day we were there, I don't think we could tell who the starter would be opening day, and it may not. They may play both. Who knows? But this is a team that, at least defensively, if they can not give up big plays, right, and they get better on the back end, I think it can help them. That's where they have to get better, quite frankly.
I mean, it was crazy last year. They had 27 different players start on defense. It's the most in the Big Ten. I mean, it is really hard to be good when you just don't consistently have players healthy. But
and that's
we'll see. And fascinated to see, Noah Kim. They've been raving about him.
He's been doing a good job.
In that discussion too at quarterback. So it's interesting. Maryland is a place where they know the quarterback. And Lia Tagovailoa, I think, can make an argument for being one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. When
Absolutely. He's on.
He is really good. This is a program that has steadily been improving. It's been fun for us to watch it. Where do you think they stand right now in that East pecking order?
Yeah, I think it's a battle to me for probably the 4th spot. Right. 4th or the 5th spot is where I think things land. And we talked about Michigan State, and Maryland is right there. But when you have a quarterback that they have, inexperienced offensive line, a little bit of an issue there, but they have gotten bigger. This is a team that, to me, the offense and defensive line have been the hardest things to build for this program. Right. And they have gotten better consistently each year. They've gotten to that point. We know they're always going to have weapons at the skill positions. They've got players there. Linebackers are players. They just have to make sure that they are able to hold up, because this seems like this could be a big year for them. If they can solidify this offensive line, they play the way this coaching staff is expecting them to do with a quarterback that you have. I mean, wow. I mean, sky's the limit for this team.
And some really talented wide receivers. They did very nicely in the portal. I thought a couple of those guys really stood out when we were there, and you still have Jay-Sean Jones back as well. You got Hemby, who's close to a 1,000-yard back. So there's a lot to like there, and the defense has gotten better and better first couple of years under Brian Williams. Rutgers is a huge quarterback question. I mean, I know Gavin Wimsett is going to be the starter, but he completed well under 50% of his passes last year. They just have to figure out a way to get better here on offense.
And how do they do that? And I think part of the psychology is saying this is where we're going to go. He's our guy. Let's continue to allow him to grow as a player. And I think that's part of the process. To have him continuing to look over his shoulder is not the ideal situation for him to be in. We know he can spin it. We know he can run it. But he's got to be consistent. And if he can get that consistency down, now all of a sudden it changes, because this is another one of those teams that are going to play good defense. They're going to
really
do exactly
good. At the beginning of last year, it was elite defense.
Yeah, and what ends up happening, because the offense is struggling, the defense spends a lot of time out on the field, they have injuries, and they just wear down by the time you get to the back end of the season. That's why they've got to find a way for this offense to be able to complement the defense so that those guys aren't on the field the entire game.
And Kirk Shiraka should help there, bringing him back as offensive coordinator. Yeah. He, of course, was there in the first go-around for Greg Schiano at Rutgers. Finally, Indiana, quarterback question there, too. There's a ton of turnover here. And so to me, the big issue is kind of how does everyone mesh coming out of the portal?
Yeah, how do you put it together? And one of the things that Coach Allen has been masterful at is the relationship part of this game, and bringing in the right people into the program that aren't going to be a disruption. And part of that, too, is there's a reason that these young people get into the portal. There's a reason that they have a new spot. So for the most part, they're going to put their best foot forward, trying to correct whatever went wrong at the place that they were before. So he has that ability, but they've got to be able to put it together, right? And is it getting back to what it was a couple of years ago? I don't know if that's it, but they can play so much better, and they have talent is there. It's just tough being in the East and having the schedule that they have. It's not easy.
Yes, the last two teams that we talked about, I'd say the last few are probably teams that are very happy to see divisions
get away with the divisions.
Go away. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Yes, no question. Wrapping things up on Big Ten today, our Big Five, going position by position through the conference. This is the maiden voyage for the two of us, but this was going on all of last week. So, Howard, you're the person who gets to compile the list.
Really?
Yes.
You think people will be angry?
Well, I don't know. It depends what you say. But yes, probably people will be angry.
I'm here for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the world we live in. Number 5, where are you going?
Aaron Lewis and Rutgers.
Oh, I like Aaron Lewis as a player and a person so much.
Yes. And I think one of the things that happens is people don't give him a lot of respect because he's playing for Rutgers. But I think you talk about a player that just has so much ability that can affect what's happening up front. That's big time. And I think he's poised to have a really exciting year.
31 quarterback hits last year.
It's a lot.
13 more than anyone else in the conference. So that's
quite a bit.
40 of the conference. He nearly doubled.
And sometimes people will be like, well, it was only 3 sacks. Yeah.
He makes an impact. Amazing kid who's been through a ton too in his life.
Excited to watch him.
Really a super young guy. Who's number 4?
Jack Sawyer, Ohio State. People will have some problems with this one, right? Because he's been one of those guys that we talked about earlier, right? That you talk about being a high 5-star player and really has not, I think, lived up to that in some people's eyes.
He had some spring game moments, a couple of years ago that wowed us all.
And I'm just telling you, I think that in the right situation, which hopefully this is it coming up for him this year, he can be a terror out there. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Chase Young. He's not one of those guys. But in his own way, he can affect the change. He's really quick with his hands. That first step is really impressive, and he can run. So you're not gonna run away from him. He's giving maximum effort all the time, and this could be a big season for him if they can get the defense turned around.
We were talking about they need a dominant pass rusher. Who's number 3?
Isaiah. Isaiah.
Adisa, right? Yeah.
Now, here's what's interesting about this player, right? I think you think about this defensive line. It's a problem.
Yes.
It is a problem. And it's because of, who's going to be playing on the other side, who might pop up on my list a little bit later. But he, again, is another one of these quick twitch guys. And that's what you look for, at least for me, when you want to have a top-end defensive player that can rush the passer. That's what you have to be able to do. You have to be a problem not only for tackles and guards, but they have to be able to move you around. And when they can move him around, they're going to make plays. And there are some other guys on that defense that really, you can't, you need to double team them, but I don't know if you can. And that's what ends up being a problem.
We got buzzed through the last two, number 2 and number 1.
JTT!
Yeah.
Now, this guy excites me. Everything about his game, rushing the passer against the run. He's going to be physical there, and he's poised to have another one. He gets after the quarterback, but I love it.
And then number 1 is?
Chop Robinson. That dude is, I mean, you just turn the tape on, and we watch him at practice.
Oh, he's amazing at practice.
He's gone. He's gone. And you talk about the guy that's playing on the other side of him. It's an impressive defensive line.